I feel like we've said this a few times before already, but these two episodes were the two that we've been building up to for a while now. So, Shin arc, episode 15 and 16, let's talk about them. Episode 15 is the Kanzaki card fight, and episode 16 is the first half of the Asuka card fight. So, this really is the moment we've all been building up towards. You know what I'm gonna say, so we'll get it out the way. These episodes would have worked better if we had to wait longer. We know that. I think the Kanzaki fight is fine. I don't like just explaining what the plot of the episode was unless I have a specific point that ties into it. So I'm gonna do it, right? For this episode's earned it. So basically what happens is we begin with Shin losing a card fight against Kanzaki, a card fight that we don't really get to see any of. Would have loved to have seen it, but whatever. You already know that by now. Because Shin loses, Rive is like, okay, I'll take him on. And my thought process was, oh wow, this is probably the most interesting way they could have finished this off in terms of like a satisfying character arc. Basically, the way this story arc has worked is it's been a story about maturity. It's been a story about Shin growing up. It's a coming of age story, right? And Card Capital and Misaki, I always viewed as sort of like this kind of visual representation, a metaphor for like Shin's maturity and his ability to kind of manage the store and juggle all these different things. Is him trying to, come of age. Because we know that when he gets the card shop, he starts acting a lot more like the adult that we know him to be. And we know that he kind of gets his life together and really starts looking after Misaki. And so I always viewed it from that lens. And him going about it the wrong way during the beginning of the arc was a sign of him not fully maturing yet. And so this story arc and all the things that Shin learns throughout it is the story of him growing up. And I like this. I like coming of age stories if they're done well. The idea of him like losing because he's reckless or rash is great. And he loses against Kanzaki. And this is the episode where, and you have to bear with me here, you have to hear me out here. This episode was the story of him actually finally maturing. Not just saying that he's matured, but actually maturing. Because every other shonen protagonist in this situation would lose against Kanzaki and immediately ask for a rematch. They would go, no, I'm not losing, I'm going again, I'm going to keep going till I win. And the anime even mentions this. I think it's Tachibana that says, technically, according to this rule set, he is allowed to ask for a rematch. But instead, Shin steps back and decides, no, I'm not going to rematch him. Any other protagonist in this situation would have the kind of lesson of the day that you need to be persistent, you need to have determination, you have to keep going, and if you keep going and keep trying, no matter how hard you try, you'll eventually beat him. It might take a while, it might be difficult, but eventually, if you just keep rematching him and never give up, you'll win. This is the message of a lot of card game anime. And so to me, it felt very refreshing when Shin was like, no, I lost, no rematch. And instead, Rive comes in and is like, okay, I'll take him down then. Because to me, this worked thematically. This was the point we were building up towards. Now again, Kanzaki isn't an interesting character. And yeah, Kanzaki isn't the interesting part of this. But the dynamic of having this villain that we've been building up to this entire time that Shin loses against, kind of gives up on, and then Rive comes in to take him down. This kind of shows us that these characters have progressed as time's gone on. They've had a bit of a think since the past few episodes. Rive is finally standing up for his friends. He's not just going the whole Shin needs to stand up for himself if he wants to win. I never help my friends, that kind of thing. That kind of annoyed me with Rive. I didn't mind it at first, but it got a bit heavy-handed by the end. And so him learning to actually, help his friends for once, finally, it shows us why Shin likes this character and why Shin looks up to him so much. And not only this, but Shin is learning the ultimate lesson about maturity, that you can't do everything yourself. One of the things that Asuka says when she wins the card shop from Shin is that he didn't even know what he was doing in the first place, because his friends were just volunteering to help at the card shop. He wasn't actually employing anyone to work there. He was just asking his friends to work there for free. He didn't know what he was doing. He was trying to kind of take all the workload on his own. He was trying to do everything on his own and juggle everything on his own. Again, this lesson about like you keep persistent and you keep trying and you keep doing it over and over again. While instead they have this lesson about how actually sometimes the most grown-up thing you can do is just admit that you aren't the one that's supposed to do this. You step back and you let one of your friends handle it for you. This is a really grown-up lesson to tell because not only is kind of giving up the limelight and letting someone else do the thing for you a really difficult thing to accept, especially for teenagers with how self-centered teenagers tend to be, but also it fits into Shin as a character, how he's up until this point multiple times in the story arc tried to work smart and not work hard. He's tried to find the easy and smart way around problems rather than just brute forcing it through the problems. Having Rive take down Kanzaki is such a clever and obvious endpoint. I can't believe I didn't see this coming just because it's such an obvious way to end the story arc. And not only this, it still doesn't even steal Shin's thunder, so to speak, because the real final fight is against him and Nessica after Rive wins against Kanzaki. Now, the reason I said bear with me is because this isn't what happens. That's all made up. Everything I just said was a lie. What actually happens is Shin loses against Kanzaki, Rive steps in and says, I'll take him on for you. And Shin says, no, fuck you. He's my opponent. I'm taking him on. And then Shin beats him. I could keep going, but I don't really know what else I would say after that, honestly. And it speaks to the problem, and maybe this is just me being too imaginative, because I've had this problem a few times before, where I've been watching the CardFight Vanguard anime, and things will happen, and immediately in my head I'll be like, couldn't you just done it this other way? Wouldn't this other way have been more interesting? And wouldn't it made more sense? But I think in this case specifically, it really speaks to the kind of weakness of the script, because I feel like at some point this was probably the plan. At some point the plan probably was to have Rive be the one who beats Kanzaki. But then Bushiroad stepped in and said, no, we gotta sell more of those Genesis decks, dude. So you gotta show Genesis be played in this episode. That's what I expected to happen, because the way that they suggest could have happened, the way that Tachibana says, technically in this rule set, Shin could card fight Kanzaki again, and Rive is like, I'll do it. I was like, oh my god, this is what they're doing. And then no, they don't. It's kind of frustrating, honestly, and it sucks because the rest of this is pretty good. The actual card fight against Kanzaki, the one they show, is pretty good. It's alright, it's fun. They skip a bit of it, but not too much to get angry about. We've skipped more in the past. And it's fun. Again, we do have the whole, you know how I said the whole lesson of the episode should have been about, Shin maturing and, learning to get old and actually have his friends help him out and everything. Yeah, they don't go that route. They go the card games are supposed to be fun route, which we've done countless times in the past. That's a lesson we've been taught by card game animes in basically all of them. All of them at some point has had that plot line about the villain taking himself too seriously and the protagonist going, but no, it's supposed to be fun because it's a game. We even did this during the Foo Fighter arc of the reboot, and we did it in the Kanzaki themed arc in the beginning of G. Assuming we have that G reboot, guess what? We're gonna have that storyline again in a few weeks' time. So good. I'm thankful for that one. Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame because I feel like this one really was a case of corporate meddling more than anything else. I love, and this cannot be overstated enough, I love that throughout episode 16, they actually contextualized the build-up to the Asuka card fight on planet Cray. This is genius. This is something that should have been, it's so clever that it makes me wonder why they didn't do that in the first place. They kind of do it here and there, but this implementation of it is genius. Basically, right? We know that we're basically in the episode, we're building up, the Shin versus Asuka card fight. And because we more or less already know what's going to go down on the human side of things, we've been building up this card fight for a very long time now. We already know what the beef between Shin and Asuka is. We actually cut to planet Cray for a surprisingly long amount of time. And we build up the conflict from the point of view of great nature in Genesis. And the cool thing is the beef between those two clans has nothing to do with Shin and Asuka specifically. They make up an in-universe Planet Krei reason for why these two clans would want to fight each other. And it was great. Now, I'm not the kind of person who thinks that the entire anime should be nothing but Planet Krei. Take out the card game, just have the Planet Krei stuff. I don't think that. I do think there's a lot of value to be earned in having the actual human characters and the card fights and stuff. I think if you're only going to do Planet Krei stuff, you should leave it to a spin-off like Bermuda Triangle did. But I do think seeing more of this is really cool because it's very obvious that the creator of the franchise was really fascinated by Planet Krei, and they never really get to kind of delve into that as much as they would like to. And unfortunately, when they did make a spin-off about this, I'm sorry, but they chose the least interesting clan to do it with. That's all I'm gonna say for now. And so it was really cool to see some of the conflict on Planet Krei actually contextualized within this manner. It was a fairly simple way of doing it, but for a first attempt, this is really cool. And again, we've had this kind of thing in the past, but only briefly with the big, like, series arc villains like Link Joker and Gize, and even then, it doesn't get that much focus. But so to have such kind of like a low stakes fight be contextualized within Krei like this, because I like to think that every single card fight ever done, both in real life and in the anime, has some kind of Planet Krei lore to it. And it's even canonical that Planet Krei is a planet that's constantly under war by all the different clans. They're always fighting each other for various different reasons, which is really funny because if you remember in G, Chrono kept going on about how peaceful and fun that planet was. I'm like, it's not. They're always fighting each other. Don't you think the characters should feel bad about that? About the fact that by playing this card game, they're making this fiction. Well, actually, no, in that universe, it is a real planet that exists. Every time a teenager picks up a Vanguard deck in that fucking universe, another clan goes, oh, god damn it, we're gonna have to fight each other again. God damn it. Like, that's something they should actually have a story arc about. And I know they kind of touch upon it in little bits during G, but it is just funny to think about. I'd like more focus on that. And again, it makes me wonder why we don't do this more often. I think the reboot, the V-Series reboot, could have made a really strong impact on me if the first episode focused on that more. If the first episode did something like this where it kept cutting from the Aichi and Kai plotline that we're already familiar with to Blaster Blade and Dragonic Overlord and them having a beef on Planet Krei that's unrelated to that of the beef between Aichi and Kai. I think that would have been cool. And it's a valuable addition to have when you do something like a reboot. So more of that, please. Not so much more of it that it becomes annoying and gets in the way of the human plotline, but more of it in general, please. I liked that a lot. We get built up to the Asuka fight, and we finally get the Asuka fight, and first of all, she wears a swimsuit. I don't get it, but whatever. We get like a backstory for Asuka about her being an idol and everything, and I thought it was pretty good. I was kind of conflicted. At some points I thought, wow, this is like actually really fucking good. But other points, I was like, wait a second. And I don't know if this is very nitpicky of me or not, if this is me looking too deep into it, but so basically, Asuka's an idol, right? She became an idol because a friend of the family was a talent agent that picked her up and was like, hey, you're an idol now. And at first she comes off as too kind of cold and distant to be an idol. And so they introduced her to CardFight Vanguard, so because it's a good way of like interacting with the fans and appearing more down to earth. I still think they should have just contextualized this as going, hey, you're an idol. We're doing a sponsorship thing with Bushiroad. Here's some trading cards. I think that would have been a better way of having her get into it, but whatever. Giving her character flaws of coming off as too distant and emotionless, that still works too. And she genuinely starts to enjoy the card game, but then it turns out that all of the card fights she's taken this entire time were staged. She was going against people who were intentionally losing to make her feel good and make her, happier and appear as an idol and everything, right? And appeal to a general audience. And that stuff was kind of cool. I could have done without the whole staging everything and all the card fights she's taken part in being fake and all that other stuff. I felt that was a bit over the top. And then I thought, okay, how does this fit into everything thematically? Like, how does this fit into Etika's character, and how does this fit into the larger story? Because the reason it exists is so that Etika finds a more genuine connection and bond to Vanguard via running into Misaki's parents, and that's where she actually falls in love with Vanguard. But then I remembered there is a place where this fits in thematically, and the place it fits in, it doesn't fit in at all. Where have we heard character manipulates other character so that all of the victories that they've had in the past ended up being a lie? Etika did that to Shin, remember? When Shin originally lost the card shop, Etika revealed that all of the victories that Shin had in the past, like for example with the tuna, were her the entire time, and she was manufacturing conflict and resolutions to make him feel at his absolute lowest. Etika is such an evil bitch that she took an event that traumatized, maybe traumatized is a heavy word for it, but an event that made her quit her job and consider giving up Vanguard entirely until she ran into Misaki's parents. She did that to Shin verbatim. What a bitch. And I don't think this is intentional. I don't think this is something that anyone else has actually picked up upon. Imagine going through something like that. Imagine, like, remember the shock on her face during that flashback when she finds out that everything she's done up to this point was an orchestrated scheme by someone else? And then years later going, I'm gonna do that same thing to this fucking teenager. Like, what the fuck did he do to you? Wow, Jesus Christ, Etika, what the fuck? And I think that's the reason I'm so conflicted upon it, because I'm like, that's actually really cool if they do something with it, if they do something self-aware about it, but they won't, will they? Maybe if one of the characters pointed this out and she kind of realized the error of her way, or just even doubled down because she didn't like being called a hypocrite, that would have been funny, but no, they don't. See, the script for this storyline really needed like another rewrite or two, because there's so many little missed opportunities like this, and I don't know if it was corporate interference, because, you know, it's a card game advert, so you do need to apply to very strict rules and stuff set by Bushiroad because they want to sell their trading cards. Maybe the original script did have this stuff in it, but then Bushiroad was like, no, play it safer, we need to sell these cards. Maybe, I don't know. Then we end the episode with the envelopes. Etika has the black envelope, which is the title deed to Card Capital. She reveals, if you win this card fight, you get this envelope, you get the card shop back. So far, so good. But then we end with a cliffhanger, and the cliffhanger is Etika revealing that she's only going to give him one envelope. Oh, what does that mean? Well, there's a red envelope too, and the red envelope is an invitation to an event. An event that if he does well in and, you know, leaves the country to do, he's almost guaranteed to become a pro Vanguard player. He's given the choice in that I can give you the card shop back like you want, or you can become a pro player and fulfill your dreams. Then we have this panning shot, I guess, of Misaki looking sad or whatever, and then we end the episode before we see what he chooses. First of all, we know which one he chooses. I said this all the way back that maybe a potential twist would be that this would be set in a parallel universe, where the twist is that this isn't actually the same as the reboot universe, and it does end in a different way, and that would have been legitimately clever, but the fact that they've already vetoed a lot of the other clever ideas means that they're probably not going to do that. So we probably are just going to, you know, end where the reboot picked up. So we already know which envelope he's going to pick, which sucks. But also, and this is a bit of a prediction here, I think Misaki's a red herring. This entire story arc, every time Shin's asked why he's trying to save the card job and everything, he's always like, it's for Misaki. It's because Misaki's traumatized because of her parents. I need to take control of the card shop for Misaki, this and that, right? And then we get revealed in a non-twist, a twist that should have been a twist, but they did it so incompetently that it didn't come off as one, where it turns out that actually Misaki was rooting for Etika this entire time because Misaki wants Shin to have a normal life. And so because of that, we can infer that Misaki actually wants Shin to choose the red envelope, the one with the pro player life in it. We know he doesn't pick that one, but we can kind of infer from everything that's happened so far that that's actually the one that Misaki wants him to take. And so far in this story arc, we're supposed to believe, because of the reasons that Shin gives, that Shin is saving the card shop out of obligation because, Misaki exists. What I think they're going for here is I think that Misaki is actually a red herring. I think that Shin's lying to himself and he wants to believe that he's saving the card shop for Misaki's sake, but in actuality, I think that has nothing to do with it. I think that he wants to be able to say that he's saving it for Misaki, but I think that he's a bit more selfish than that. I think that he's been saving the card shop this entire time because he's finally found his purpose. And again, think about this thematically. Who is the other character who's had a pretty big extended backstory? Gonami. Gonami had a storyline about how she was so competent at everything that her life had no purpose. She didn't know what to do with herself until she found Vanguard and lost to Asuka. That gave her purpose. And then we had Mikuru. Mikuru, who's a very non-existent character up until the story arc, who didn't really have anything to do with her life or anything. And we have this kind of push and pull of, should I become an idol, should I not? And we all know that she ends up looking after Chrono. And another character we focus on a lot is Rive and Rive's destiny, I guess. In that, he wanted to become a pro Vanguard player, but then he quit all that to be with his family. But then we know that he ends up leaving his family. This story arc is, like I said, a coming-of-age story about people finding their purpose in life, figuring out what it is they want to do with themselves. And I think that thematically, to tie this all together in a neat bow, we're going to realize that Shin wants to save Card Capital because he's finally found his purpose in life, and his purpose in life is just to look after Card Capital. And it fits. If you think about all the other times we've seen Shin in other story arcs, it fits. He always seems content with his life. He always seems pretty happy. He never really talks about past regrets or anything. He's always just pretty happy. He's like, yep, I'm looking after my niece, and I'm looking after this card shop, and I'm having fun while I'm doing it. Might mentor a couple of card fight clubs while I'm at it. He seems happy with himself, and I think that's what we're building up to. I think he's just gonna admit to himself that actually he's not doing this out of guilt for Misaki's sake. I think that he's just gonna be happy doing it himself. I think this is the coming of age in the coming of age story. I think he's just a card shop owner. Always will be, always has. He just hasn't realized it until now. And if they go that route, then it'll be good. But as you already remember, earlier on in this exact same video, I mentioned another thing that should have happened that would have led to a really satisfying conclusion to the arc, and they didn't go for it. So maybe they won't go for this too. I don't know. I guess we'll find out. So yes, see you next time for episode 17 of the Shinemon arc, where we finally get to find out what happens to Shin. I wonder if it's going to be him winning the card shop back or not. Something's telling me that's what happens. Hey. Yeah, see you next time where we talk more about the Shinemon arc.